Welcome to the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast, where each short episode we talk about the strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land business. Learn how to find freedom within your own business, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and hear how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to building your dream life through your land business. And I'm your host of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. I've got an awesome guest here. This is like a super practical, no fluff, what is he doing, everything lifted behind the curtains type of thing as to what he's doing, what's marketing, and all of that as a virtual wholesaler. His name is Owen Scott. I hope you enjoyed this episode here with Owen. Cheers. All right, we got our guest here, Owen. Owen, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when you've been sort of guests on other podcasts, you sort of, parade the fact that you're in college when you first started real estate investing, wholesaling. And that's where, that is where you started from. So give us a little bit of understanding. How did you get into it? What were you doing at that time? As young as you were, let us hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I was a sophomore in college at the time and was kind of just looking for, ways to, kind of combine a side hustle with full-time college. And then kind of scrolling through Instagram one day, Mr. TTP, Brent Daniels, I came across one of his ads and kind of checked it out. And back then I think it was probably like $100 to get most of what you need to start wholesaling and just learn the basics. And I knew nothing about real estate at the time. Right. So kind of went through that course and, started doing everything kind of a virtual cold calling, just, straight from my dorm room, everything like that. And yeah, just kind of been doing it virtually since then. Got my first deal done, which kind of snowballed the rest of it. Reinvested everything into marketing. And that's kind of how we got into it. Yeah. From the virtual wholesaling side of things. Yep.
Virtual wholesaling.
Yeah.
What market were you working out of? And then, tell us that first.
Yeah. So the first probably 5 to 6 deals were all in Memphis, Tennessee, just because kind of low barrier to entry, lower prices, a lot of buyers. So, yep.
When you started cold calling, what was that like? Were you actually doing the cold calling? Were you calling by pressing phone numbers? Were you using a system to cold call? What did that look like?
Yeah, it was just me. Yeah, I had probably $100 of, monthly budget to work with, right? So I was just on the, I think I was using batch dialer back then. So yeah, just, kind of getting as much free data as I can, pumping it in there. And I was doing the calling myself up until probably deal number 6 is when I hired a VA at that point. But yeah, just all me from the start. Yep.
I do want to talk about how you started, but are you still doing cold calling? Is that part of your strategy right now?
We've gotten away from kind of the mass cold calling, just instead of pulling, high equity absentee stuff like that, we're still doing cold calling, but to very, very small, hyper motivated lists, foreclosure, probate combined, like everything stacked, probably less than 200 properties per month, honestly. So super condensed.
But you're still cold calling is the fact.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just kind of a different model. Yeah.
Early on, it's great to hear that you've pivoted to more of a hyper targeted list now. What were some of those early learnings when it came to cold calling?
I would say the biggest one is, nobody likes it. It's just kind of, it is what it is, right? It's the cheapest way to get a purchase agreement that can make you, 10 to 15, 20,000, right? So I think it's something, learning right away. It's the cheapest way to get a discounted deal, right? So that's what I took away from it. It's something you can scale, hiring virtual assistants and everything like that. But it is a volume game, that's for sure. Like that's probably one out of probably 50, it's probably 50 leads to a contract these days for that type of data. So definitely works 100%. I have friends that's all they do and they do great with it. But but yeah, definitely a beginner's, what I would say a beginner should probably cut their teeth with and go from there. Plus you get experience talking to sellers, which is the main takeaway. Right. So yeah.
You mentioned here it's a volume play. So you believe cold calling is a volume play?
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the I mean it shifts. You're saying here, you start learning by talking to people. Then that it seems to be that there's a tipping point. Once you've learned enough, I mean you said 6 deals. Okay, I've done enough now. And then at that point you pass it on to somebody else or a team or service to start scaling up. Is that sort of how you look at it?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm all about kind of keeping one centralized marketing channel, mastering it. Then if you want to add on to it, that's great. So that's kind of what I, even with pretty much no business or real estate knowledge, that's kind of what I did inadvertently. That's all I did, whether it was myself or a virtual assistant, was calling through probably the first year of doing it. Right. And it was a side hustle back then, but still we just kind of laser focused on that channel. Right. And then added on from there. So yeah, that's kind of what it looked like.
When you're starting off with cold calling, and so you did your 6 deals, did you say that took about a year? Is that a year's time of cold calling, or is that 6 months?
Yeah, it was the 6 deals probably came within, I'd say 5 to 6 months from start to finish. Yeah, that's looking back. Yeah, around that much time. Yeah.
So when your team continues to do the cold calling, first of all, how are you hiring for a cold caller? And then next of all, how do you continue to train them then? If you're not on there, but they're learning a lot, or like how does that, or do you just kind of trust them? Like, okay, well, it's just one person. I don't have anything anybody else to train. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I would, from experience, I would definitely say don't just trust them. You gotta, management does come into play. I hired my first VA, kind of gave him a little bit too much kind of, free will without supervision. Because I, did here's the dialer, here's the script, here's how, here's what one of my calls looks like, right? And he was good. It's just kind of, definitely probably should have been more structured there. But after that learning experience, we actually used like a VA caller firm that manages them, just because I think that's probably the best. There's better uses of your time than managing the dialer, in my opinion, that are more revenue generating. So that's, if I had to do it over again, I probably would have gone to a managed cold calling service quicker, and just focused on locking up deals from those leads. Right. So yeah, that's kind of what the progression looked like. Yep.
So you feel that it's better to hire out to a third party to handle the cold calling for you versus doing it in-house. Nowadays, are you doing it in-house or is it still with a third party service?
It's still with a third party, for kind of our, the lingering data that, like I said, we changed the model so that it's much less data now. We're still kind of wrapping up that campaign with the bigger kind of blanket data. But now that it's very small lists, I'm doing it myself. Just I still handle our acquisitions. But that's very, very targeted data that, is pulled directly from the county to where, it's a good use of time to be speaking one-on-one with those property owners and making those connections. Yep.
Can you, on a tactical level, sort of walk us through, with the cold callers that you work with nowadays, what are you getting answered on those calls? And then how does that transition over to you?
So when the callers are on the phone with the seller, we're, the managed service that we have been using, the instruction is basically to keep the initial conversation very limited. We just want the bare information of, like, are they raising their hand that they want to sell within the next, 4 months? Great. Okay. That's checkbox number one. And then from there, that becomes a lead. That is what makes it a lead for us. And then from there, they'll collect, exactly how soon, kind of a basic motivation as to why you want to sell. And then, kind of 1 out of 10 condition of the property as well. and then it gets handed over to it gets put into our CRM for us to continue that relationship with the seller. So very minimal. Just want them to know if they're raising their hands, and we'll take it from there. Yep.
So then that comes into you, and then you're the one who's calling them back to further qualify and do the due diligence on that property?
So I have a lead manager who's the first internal kind of line of defense when it comes to the leads. She'll take she'll take all these sellers through kind of a more detailed filter. Kind of extract price, extract kind of real motivation. It's just do you want a number versus do you actually have a reason to sell, right? She'll filter out, I would say, probably 25% of the overall leads that come in to our CRM, and then the actual qualified ones that she gets to will get pushed to me with a specific day and time appointment to do a process call. Yeah.
Got you. Okay, cool. Here's sort of a left field of a question. How do you feel about, the presence of AI, and is that something you see sort of replacing your third-party service?
Yeah, I mean, AI is everything right now. There's more and more money being thrown, especially in our space, in the real estate data space, and just honestly in general for the sales stuff, all that stuff. I don't think that AI cold calling is going to replace regular cold calling within the next few years. I think there's some legal stuff or, political stuff too, that is probably going to have to be, overcome for that to go into, real effect. But it is starting to be putting into practice. If a seller opts in, if they're submitting, just saying, hey, I sign off that AI is going to be talking to me, I approve, if they give that consent. But yeah, I think 5 years from now, I think it'll definitely replace the mass blanket cold call marketing. I don't think it'll affect the niche stuff as much, where it's like, hey, we know there's 3 years of back taxes with an open estate with a pending foreclosure. I don't think AI is there yet, but yeah, for the bigger high equity lists that are just saying, hey, we want to know who's raising their hand to sell. I think AI will take that over probably within the next 5 years once it's legal. But yeah.
Cool. So nowadays, help us understand, Owen, what does the team look like, first of all? And what are you currently trying? Are there anything you're experimenting or learning on? So again, what does the team look like, and what does like current strategy experimentation look like right now, or is it smooth sailing?
Sure, definitely. So I have a lead manager who's a virtual assistant. She's full-time though, in the Philippines. So like I said, she'll screen all of those leads that come in just to make sure they're serious before, passing them off to me for like a dedicated appointment with the seller, over the phone. And then I have a executive assistant that's just kind of my go-to. She's local in South Carolina here. So she'll, kind of manage all of our data internally, marketing campaigns, my inbox, calendar, pretty much everything that's not, something I need to do that's revenue generating. Trying to get more and more off of my day to day, get it onto her day to day, just because she's better at it, frankly. So that's the team right now. I think the next hire is probably going to be a transaction coordinator. We do a lot of work with very messy titles, stuff that's before estates are open, a lot of foreclosure stuff, stuff like that, to where, I'm good at figuring out a solution to clear it, tracking down errors, all sorts of stuff like that. But it is kind of a time suck. So that's probably the next hire, pretty soon here. And I think after that, it'll probably be an acquisitions person as well. But my strength is in the acquisitions, the sales type stuff. So that's going to be the last thing I I hand off to somebody else after we have training in place. And, that's probably at least a year from now. So yeah, but definitely a smaller team. I don't see it growing past 3 or 4 more hires. I think we can be lean and mean, keep those net margins high, and, easily be able to pump out, a couple million a year in top line revenue. So yeah, and then trying new stuff. When I don't know if you know Michael Frankie. He's really big into niche lists, especially foreclosures. So kind of taking a lot of what he does and started applying that. So we're doing a lot of foreclosure outreach, combined with the probates as well, tax delinquent things. Kind of those three are the main ones that kind of wrapped into that stacked list that I mentioned to you. And we're sending, very personal handwritten local postage mail to them, everything like that. That's kind of kept our marketing budget below, $1,200 a month, which is great. And we're getting 2 to 3 deals a month from that spend at, about average 20 to 25,000 a deal. So, just kind of putting more into that, figuring out how we can add more value to those foreclosure leads. And yeah, just kind of focusing on quality versus quantity in terms of deals right now. Especially kind of some uncertainty in the market, right? I'm not really sure kind of what things are going to look like towards the end of this year, but yeah, that's kind of what everything looks like right now. Yep.
Your niche lists, foreclosure, probates, tax delinquent, anything you have to do differently you find with each one of these or in general than, previous?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to treat it a little different than, your tired landlord, or something like that. I think we do pretty well with the foreclosure stuff and the probate stuff because we kind of approach it with the framework of, hey, we notice it's in foreclosure. Would you be open to discussing some options to stop the foreclosure? Right. We're not just going after them and saying, hey, cash closing, 2 weeks, right, as is, because 99% of other buyers are going to be doing that exact same thing. And that's when they put their kind of guard wall up or, to not have that conversation. Right. So, we are kind of walking through for the foreclosure stuff, all of the options at their disposal, whether it's catching it up, loan modification, cash sale, sub to, whatever works best for them. And even help them get in touch with the mortgage company and all that too. And if it comes to the fact that, if the first two options don't work, we're here as a cash solution. We do post occupancy as well. Like if they need help finding a place, all sorts of stuff like that. That's kind of where we add the value and are still able to get stuff deeper than other buyers because we do come in with that value. So I would just say it's not like a direct, hey, cash convenient, blah, 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 like the typical cash buyer pitch. It's more just kind of leading from a place of value about, we know you have this situation going on. Here's what you can do. And here's how we can help, whether it's us buying the house or something else. Right. So that's kind of how we handle a little bit differently, based on the lead type. Right.
But on the cold calling side, nothing really gets adjusted. It's until it comes to your acquisition manager or your intake person and yourself when things start changing. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So the data is filtered just by pretty much by all those category types, right? The foreclosure, probate, all that stuff. And then once we have that list ready to go, at that point, we'll do the internal, we'll outbound call, text these people that are on those lists. And then the stuff that's kind of more inbound off of mail, everything like that, that'll go through my lead manager and then to me. Right. So, but yeah. Yep.
You're interestingly also doing mailing. You're doing some handwritten stuff there.
Right.
And so how do you commingle that with your cold calling? Is that just sort of you're going to cold call and you're going to follow up with some mail, just kind of find a reason to reach out to them? And I'm assuming this is cold mailing. This isn't
correct.
This is not leads. So what does that look like?
So we'll every morning we kind of compile the new properties and property owners that are added to those filters, right? And every single morning that list will get that internally, and my assistant will actually, herself will write those letters. And like I said, it's usually 10 or less per day, right? So, she lives, within 30 minutes of all of these properties, right? So like I said, actual handwritten letter from a local probably your same zip code, postal stamp, right? All of that stuff. So the mail's the first thing we do actually. And then our running kind of response rate from those mailers it hovers between 6 and 7% right now. So, send 100, get 6 or 7 responses, probably 3 of them will be qualified and probably 1 or 2 of them will be a deal. Right. So yeah, 6%, that's something we're proud of. And I attribute it to, one, it's true handwritten, like not robot handwritten, not, it's an actual person in the community that's physically taking these to the post office, and all that stuff. So that's in plus combined with the framework that I mentioned where we're actually running them through their options and not just saying, hey, cash offer, like the normal marketing that these people get in the mail, right? So that's kind of where the higher response rate comes in.
All right, so you heard it from Owen himself. A system like a CRM to keep everything together as his leads come in, so he can track and centralize that and communicate on those leads with his team, or if he needs to generate documents or start the due diligence process, be able to track everything and simplify everything under one system. Not only that, mailing is also a big part of what Owen does in terms of personalized mailing. This is exactly what we're building here inside of Pebble. This is a system built from the ground up to manage property record data, but streamlining the entire deal flow. So acquiring the property, going through due diligence, if it's assigning it to your team members, your acquisition manager, whoever it might be, keeping things in order. Not only that, tracking things like conversations and generating documents, recording your due diligence in there. This is all built into Pebble. The big one also is tracking your marketing. This is probably our biggest spend. Whether you're cold calling like Owen here, or you are doing direct mailing, you want to be able to track and see what you've done for each and every property record so you have clarity on follow-up. So if you want to learn more about all of this and what we do here at Pebble, head over to pebblerei.com. There's a book a demo button there. Let us know, what are your questions? We'd love to answer that and show you what Pebble is all about and how we're helping so many other real estate investors. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the rest of this episode here with Owen Scott. So changing that messaging and personalization. Yeah, I've seen a lot of improve. I don't know if you've ever split tested it before, but inside of our platform with Pebble, like we've seen like highly personalized stuff.
For sure. Yeah, it's more money, but it's worth it every time. Because it's
Yeah, it doesn't take much more work. But anyways, we won't get into that.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so you're doing this virtually. A lot of us are. What are you do have someone in the local market that you're working out of, but what are some things that we should keep in mind when it comes to doing it virtually? I would just assume you probably never have visited any of the properties.
No, I didn't visit any properties until probably a little over a year ago when I was finishing up school. Just kind of coincidence I was in town, but virtually, the virtual model, while it does have drawbacks, obviously the speed of things is a little different. You can't just walk or drive 5 minutes down the road to actually see if somebody's there, stuff like that. But it does help because you have to treat it like a business from day one, right? You can't just my biggest pet peeve is when people tell me that they're in the car all day just driving an hour across town to get to an appointment, drive back an hour to get stuff like that. So you treat it, you manage your time very well in terms of like, okay, you're just literally all your appointments are on the phone, everything like that. So there's no wasted buffer time. If you want to have an appointment at 2, off at 2:30, on to the next one, there's no buffer, right? But beyond that, I think being virtual means you need to have really good connections that are on the ground, right? I recommend, especially if you're doing flips, I would get like a true high producing listing agent on the ground, even if they're not listing everything you do, but somebody who can run local comps, knows the market, everything like that. Even if you're going to wholesale something, right? I mean, they can confirm or deny your ARV. If they rehab themselves, they can kind of adjust your repair budget. They know days on market, stuff like that. Contractors is a big one, just to get a scope if you need one. If you're flipping it, even if not, if you're going to assign it, it's always good to have a repair estimate too. Other big ones, home inspector doesn't come up as as much from the wholesaling side, but if we don't do as much wholesaling now, but the times before when we decide, okay, we're going to wholesale, we're going to flip, we'd still get a full inspection done. And even if we're passing it off to a buyer, we're kind of serving it up on a silver platter, right? Because here's the inspection report. We kind of get around a lot of excuses as to why they can't move forward, then and there, because there's no questions about the roof condition. It's all there, right? So yeah, the boots on the ground is key. And just last piece of advice about being virtual: don't use that as an excuse to not get to know every real player in that market. Yeah, like Facebook, message somebody, anybody that's in the Facebook group chats that's consistently posting deals, and lead with value too, especially if you want to get to know the buyers. Bring them a great deal, even a better deal than you probably could get, right? If you take an extra 5K off, they'll know who you are after that deal, right? So yeah, that's what I'd say. Just make those connections, and by the time you do pop into town, if you ever do, they'll know who you are. That would be my advice. Yep.
So your current strategy, you're not wholesaling right now. What are you exactly doing then?
So with I don't know if you heard just about the regulation change in South Carolina. Just they kind of just put their foot down on wholesaling pretty much completely. There's not very few workarounds at this point. So the two exit strategies at this point, or I guess three. One is just we're taking it down with private money, and as soon as those closing documents are signed, selling it to our buyer. Right, we're not marketing it before closing on it. Exit strategy number two is just doing a wholesale. So buying it, cleaning it out, making it presentable, putting it on the market with our agent. And the third one is just a traditional fix and flip, doing the full retail, renovation to it, selling it for top dollar, and, within a 4 to 5 month time period.
What's sort of the split for your business between those three exit strategies?
So it's been recently probably about 75% retail flips. I'd say probably 10 to 20% wholesales, because that's kind of slowed down with interest rates being high. People just can't fix stuff up anymore. And the very few where we just turn around and sell them to other buyers, that's changing. As of last month, we're kind of flipping the script a little bit. Probably 70% wholesales and just quick turnaround to our buyer wholesale stuff, and 30% retail flips if we can kind of swing for the fences, make 100K all day type flip. But with the market uncertainty, we're kind of sticking to the quicker stuff. Starting this past month. So yeah.
This has been a very tactical and practical episode here. I really enjoy it. I do want to ask you, again, you were saying that efficiency is huge being virtual. So what are you doing? Who's on your team helping you to be efficient? How are you being efficient? What does your day look like, if you're being efficient?
Yeah, definitely. So biggest improvement in our internal efficiency was hiring my assistant. I think I kick myself all the time for not doing that like a year earlier, because it really makes no sense. But we're all hard headed. I mean, my attitude was like, oh, I can answer my emails. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Right. So, getting a lot of those admin tasks off my plate, opened up the floodgates of, I can make more calls, have, create better connections and everything like that. So that's what I would say. Step number one: once you get up and running, you get probably 5-6 deals, maybe 10 deals under your plate or under your belt, excuse me. Hire an admin. Doesn't have to be local. You can get a VA. You can get, pretty much anybody to help you with that stuff. And that'll give you back probably 70% of your time. Right. And with that time, don't just chill, right? use that on getting more deals, and just kind of growing the bottom line. Right. So that's the biggest thing, honestly. And just, kind of guarding your peace, guarding your time. Don't, just stay hyper focused. You'll kind of figure out really quickly who in the daily go of things kind of drains your energy versus adds to your energy. Right. So, obviously get the people that drain your energy out of the way. And just kind of keep doing your thing with great people, and everything else will kind of take care of itself if you stay focused on that mission. Yep.
Owen, curious, how long have you been in real estate investing now?
It'll be 3 years this coming February. Yeah. So yeah, it's crazy. It's flown by. That's for sure. But yeah.
It's I don't know if it's just this conversation or not, but it just seems like things are trucking along for yourself. You're learning tons. You're not slowing down. It seems like there's consistency in what you do. Did I describe that correctly?
Yeah, definitely. And, I'm a big learner. I love kind of talking to other people to see what's working for them. And we're refining kind of what I would want the business to look like. I'm kind of learning that every day, like, okay, this really doesn't add to what we're doing. And, this really, keeps the train moving, stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm getting to a point where we're getting an identity, right? There's no more of like the imposter syndrome of when I start, after that first deal closed. Yeah, it's kind of easing into that, this is the industry, this is what we're doing within it, and kind of just keeping it rocking. Yeah. So
Well, my last question is, and thank you for sharing so much on this show here. Literally, like I think people are going to have to re-listen to this episode here. Just you've been puking out a lot of gems here for us to get some transparency. You also mentioned a person. I'd love to hear from you. Is there a guest that you think would be a great fit on this show as we talk about wholesaling or real estate investing? You mentioned a fellow named Frankie. Is it?
or Michael Frankie, yeah, yeah, you can look him up. He's all over YouTube, and I think he's based out of Kansas City, but yeah, they're doing really big things and everything like that. Another person that I would say, is a guy by the name of Matt Cunningham. He's based out of Florida. He's my age, actually. It's a very similar story. Who, is doing kind of a direct to agent type model too. So, he's definitely a guy I can give you his information if you need, but yeah, for sure. Definitely, man.
Owen, thanks so much for coming on the show, being so transparent about what you're doing, what's working for you, how you've changed things, and sort of what you're seeing things are going to be like a few years from now.
Yeah.
Thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much, Jesse. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure chatting with you. Cheers.
Yes, sir.